Welcome back, CSC230, to part 5 of our ex4 CSS practice. And what we're going to do in this video is just review a media query. I was going to do 2, but let's just do 1 because the video is getting long and we have 5 parts now. And we're going to do more with media query, so this will just be like a little introduction. So what we're going to do is just take a look at a breakpoint. And what I mean is when the window gets smaller. So I'm going to right click on here and choose inspect. Brings up the inspector down here. We'll go over that at some point, but just for now, if you have that open, you can drag this over and you'll start to see the width up there in the top. And what I'm going to do is in pixels, when it gets to somewhere like, I think 600 should be fine. We'll do that. We'll say when it gets to 600, those columns are pretty narrow. So, I mean, it could be 620 or you could go a little wider than that. When they get to there, what we're going to do is we're going to snap it to no longer be 3 columns, but just have them stacked. And then we'll get rid of the white on that side. We'll just do that for now. We don't have to do the 2 media queries. We'll just do 1 for now. So when it gets to 620, we're going to break it down into 1 column where these are stacked on top of each other. So that means we're going to basically put a condition and then a style that's going to be used when that condition is met. And to do that, I'm going to stretch this out again, and I'm going to close my inspector down here. And I was in box sizing, and actually below box sizing is CSS Media Queries. So that's where we need to be. And you could always just search W3 Schools Media Queries is an easy place to go search that. And I'm going to go into Media Queries, and if you just scroll down, what we'll do is just find one. We don't have to go into a whole lot of detail right now. Here's an example right here, and I'll show you the example to have a try it yourself. Now this one is going the opposite of the way I had it. This is like, it has a media query, and as long as it's bigger than 480, it's going to be light green. So it catches it when it's larger than 480. So that means when it gets smaller, it's going to be pink. It's going to use the default. Now we're going to go backwards. We're going to make it max width so that when it gets smaller than 620, something's going to change. And this is the style. You can see there's a style here, and you could do all kinds of styles. We could change the columns, we could change the font, we could change the padding, all kinds of things. So we're going to use something like that. And like I said, min width means that's the minimum width it'll be to be light green, and then anything else it's going to be pink. So we're going to switch that around. We're going to use max width, and that's fine because I like to use the style. I like to use the media query when it changes. So this one kind of goes backwards, which I think is a little odd or a little more confusing. So anyway, I'm going to close it up, and let's see if they have one here with max width. They don't. They have min width, but we could just change it to max width. So I'm going to highlight this, and notice there's a media query has curly braces, and that's kind of like the condition, and then there's styles inside that. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go in here to the end. I'll just go to the end of my styles, and you could always put like media queries just to kind of make it stand out. Highlight it, do that command or control question mark, and I'll just put it after here. And I'm going to change this to max, and I'm going to change it to 620. Because we said that once it gets lower than 620. So this is going to be where it changes. So if its max is 620, once it gets less than 620, then we're going to put whatever's in here. Now we're not going to change the background color or anything. What we're actually going to do is put in a style for columns. Now we have section container, background color. That's not going to change, although we may change the width of it so that it's 100%, and we may take off the margin auto and things like that, and take off the, well, I guess that's it. I think the only thing we change here, and you only have to put what's different. You don't have to repeat the whole thing. So the width is going to be 100% of container. So let's try that. I'm going to highlight this style or this declaration block, and I'm going to put it inside here, and it gets indented. And background color, if it's not going to change, you don't have to put it. So I'm just going to backspace that. Margin auto, all that's going to be the same. So if it's the same, you don't have to include it in the query. You just have to put what's going to change. And I'm going to put 100% because that's what's changing. The section container is going to now be 100%. And let's check anything else here. Float left. So our columns are no longer going to float left. So I'm going to highlight that and put that as a breakpoint style. So inside here, and again, it's all going to be inside this one. And actually, I'm getting a red line there. Make sure that you close this one first. You have to, it's just like working with functions. You need the opening and closing of the media query, opening and closing of the style. So before I do anything else, I'm going to paste another one here. And there's section column. They're no longer going to float left, so I have to put none. I can't just remove it. I have to put float none, so it knows not to do that. And the width is no longer going to be 33%. It's going to be 100%. And the box sizing, I guess we could keep that. Everything else will be the same. I don't think we even have to, if they're going to be the same, we could remove them. Only the things that change are going to be needed, and I have 2% there, so I have to get rid of that. And I think we had this padding left here of those two columns, so I'm going to change them too, because they were only creating space when they were columns, but they're not anymore. So I'm going to put that in there. And I got to watch my columns here because I'm missing my closing down here. So that should be, you should always see the opening and closing of the media query. There's the start, there's the close, and it's actually missing it down here. So let me put that down here. Here's the opening, and there's the closing. Here's the opening of this one, there's the closing. If you double click on it and highlight it, it should show you the opening and closing. There's opening, closing, and here's an opening and closing. And I'm going to tab that in so they kind of line up underneath each other. Or I could go back a little bit here. Well, I'll tab that, I'll tab that, I'll tab that. So they're all kind of lined up. Now this one is no longer going to be padding left, it's going to be 0. Because we're taking those out from column 1. So we're only changing the things that are going to be changed. And for some reason the tabs are getting messed up here, but as long as we have the right number of curly braces, 1, 2 for the opening, closing, and then 2 for each style, 2 for the section container, 2 for the section call, and 2 for taking away the padding here, we should be okay. So let's see how this works. Didn't take a lot of work, and we're going to do more with this, so don't feel like you have to, I didn't really give a good lesson of it or anything. I'm just kind of showing you what's going to happen. So this will be learning from just seeing what happens, and then eventually we'll dig into it a little bit more. So let me run it, and let me refresh it, and nothing should look different when you first refresh it. The only way it should look different is when you go and get below 620 pixels. Let's see, there we go. So now it does break only because this thing breaks. It looks like something happens, but it doesn't. But it's only once we get to there. Now there's still an issue there with that percentage. So, and we also have some issues here with column 2 and column 3. Actually, we could still use column 2 and column 3, except maybe put a padding above, because it looks like they don't have the right space there. So we have to fix that, and we also have to fix something with, it's kind of messing up over here because we don't have the right padding inside there. So we have a couple things to fix, and maybe it's the box sizing thing. Let's check that out. Padding left we'll put 0, and then we'll put padding top for just those two. I'll put 1em for now. We'll see how that looks. Instead of pixels, I'll put that in for now. The width here is 100%, and maybe I do need box sizing. Okay, so apparently I needed box sizing border box on the section container. And I didn't do that initially because I didn't have that there, but I think because it went from 80% and now it went to 100%, it was making that too wide. So I had to now attach that there so that any other padding that's part of section container, if that's going over the amount to fit in there, we need that. So anyway, that's what's fixing it. If I put box sizing border box inside there for section container, I need to just add that in there. So now when I refresh it and I make it smaller, everything's the same size now. I'm not running into the issue where that thing was larger. So the 100% was making it larger, so we needed to add that border box. So anyway, that's all we're going to do for this. I don't want to get too caught up in this right now. We're going to do more with media queries and responsive. We have a whole lesson on it, but that's kind of the idea of what we do, is we kind of add some styles that change when the width of the window changes. So we made some style changes when the width of the window changed to 620. They now go to one column, meaning there's no floating happening. We also made that 100%, but then I also had to make it so that The padding didn't add on too much to it, so I guess when it went to 100%, the padding added on to it, so we had to kind of take that off with the border box sizing property. So that's about it. So I'm going to stop here with part 5. Hopefully it didn't confuse you by going through that. So just kind of treat this as a little introduction to media queries, and you can kind of see what happens. We're just kind of creating like a condition where new styles will kind of take their place. But you got to keep in mind that if you just change one thing, sometimes it changes other things. So we had to change a couple things here. We had to change the container to 100%. We had to add this box sizing because it was being too wide. We had to change our columns to 100% and took away the floats. And then we also took away the padding left on those 2 columns because we don't need the extra padding left anymore. It was helpful when it was a 3-column layout. And then the padding top we added so there'd be space between the paragraphs. We didn't have to worry about that before because we didn't need space above the paragraphs, but here we do. So there were kind of 3 things that we added here. And I'm not sure, that should be in blue because it's in blue up there, so I'm not sure why that is. But anyway, things seem to be working now, so I'm going to stop here for part 5 because we already made this pretty long. So this was part 5 of ex4, and then for ex5, we're going to start working on a kind of more detailed layout called Jumbotron that's kind of based on Twitter Bootstrap. So we're going to do that next, but hopefully this is a little introduction, hopefully a simple introduction, not that there weren't complicated things thrown in with CSS. There's a lot of CSS in here, but that's the basics. Just a layout that kind of works 3 columns when it's wider and then goes down to 1 column when it's shorter. And again, you can also have breakpoints so that if you wanted it to be 2 columns for a short time, but it's such a short time, I thought it'd be better off to just have one query that just kind of broke it down like that. So when it's on a phone, it would look like that. So anyway, when you're done, all that you have to do, if you already shared your workspace, Replit, this thing, that's all you got to do is share that, put it in your comment for ex4, insert it as a link, choose new window, just like you've been doing in the past, and then I'll be able to get into your Replit account and see your stuff, and I'll be able to get in here and see this. So that's all you have to do. So that is part 5 of ex4.